Hello, and thank you for calling in. Graham, is that you?
Hey, Michael,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. What's going on?
All right. No, I just wanted to address what you were just saying about how if we expand the states and if we expand Congress and how even if we get more people in there, does that mean that people are going to pay attention less? I'm I've always been fascinated with the state of New Hampshire because from what friends have told me, New Hampshire has one of the biggest state legislatures in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's to the point where if you live in a certain neighborhood in New Hampshire, you have almost like a personal relationship with your state assembly person. Might not be the case with your state senator, but if you know your state assembly person on a first name basis, I think that's like a really good thing, especially for people to like stay involved and to keep up with like what their state government is doing. And on the other side of that, I mean, people in California, people like me, we have, I think, one state senator for every million people and one state assembly person for every 500,000 people. Right? Like that to me means that like dude, nobody's going to pay attention. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your opinion on that in terms of like the difference between a state like New Hampshire and a state like California?
Well, my biggest, it comes back to the same thing. If you have elected good people, someone who's effective, it's not whether I know Bob down the street is my assemblyman. If you don't know what Bob's doing, what does it matter? If Bob put in, I'm just throwing this out here. So say you have Bob, and Bob wants to defund the police. Okay. Does it matter that you think Bob's a great guy? If you don't agree with defunding the police, and you think Bob's a great guy, but you don't know that he's trying to defund the police, is that a good vote?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And then that goes to something that Hillary Clinton once said. I'm definitely not a fan, and I didn't vote for her in 2016. But I remember when she was saying that every person in office is going to have both a public and a private position. Right. So when you're saying that if Assembly Person X, is in favor of defunding the police, well, then, if you don't like that, then you're going to vote against them. Okay, right? That's totally fine in terms of their public position. But it seems to me that when if we're thinking about trying to improve our level of civic engagement, and if we have access to somebody who we know on a first name basis, we can at least call up their office. We can at least like write them a letter. We can reach out to them in some way and be like, hey, assembly person X, why are you in favor of that? Like, to me, that seems like a really, really bad decision. Like, is there something that I'm not seeing from your perspective? Can you explain to me
Yes.
why you are in favor of quote unquote defunding the police?
No, no, I understand exactly what you're saying there. And by the way, just so people know, and you can go to Ballotpedia, I just pulled it up myself. New Hampshire has 228 legislative districts, 400 for the House, 24 for the Senate. It is a
Hmm.
ridiculous number.
Hmm.
So I get that, but you have that now. As an example, and I know people will say, well, I'm an exception to the rule, but I can only point to myself. But to answer your question, Grab, I know several members of Congress. I know them now. I know some of them privately as well as publicly. But that's because I've actually shown up at their town halls. I was just recently at the town hall for Mark Molinaro.
Hmm.
I showed up early, spoke to him for a couple minutes before the event, and then I was also asked a question at the event, which is all on video, and people can see it for themselves
Hmm.
when the event started, my question and his answer, as well as every other question and answer that was made. It's about 2 weeks ago. So the fact is, though, in that room, there was about 30, 40 people, roughly. Most of them from two different political organizations, both of them on the left. That room could have had 200 people in it. He could have had a bigger location. He's going to 11 different districts, 11 different counties, because the New York 19th district now has that, gerrymandered and all. But people have access. People can write a letter. I have submitted letters at the local, state, and federal level. I've actually put in propositions for law. I've actually written out bills to be proposed as law at the local, state, and federal level.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. I don't need to be on a first name basis to be able to do all the things that you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't doing it. I am familiar, and you've seen me on the show many times. I read bills, and I will tell people about this bill or that bill that I became aware of, what it says, and I will actually go through the lines. Like, this is the line I have a problem with. There's a line I don't have a problem with. A1345, I believe it was, a week ago. No, 1344, where I was like, okay, it had only 4 lines. 1, 2, and 4 I was fine with. 3 is the one that destroys everyone's life. But you could find that too. Mm-hmm. And you can write about it right now. So we don't need more people. We need people being more involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate that answer. I would just say 2 things.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm on. I don't know if I agree. I don't know yet if I agree with the notion that, like, if you have more people, then that means you're going to have more corruption. Maybe you're right about that, but maybe there's the other side of the coin where it's just going to be the same amount of corruption, and there's going to be the same amount of money flowing in to try to negotiate those bribes, but those bribes will be they'll be more dispersed. They'll be more spread out over more people. And what I tend to think is that if somebody has a first name basis relationship with somebody in office, I would venture to guess that they will more easily detect. They'll more quickly pick up on the fact that their representative is not representing them and instead is being bought by the big money donors. It seems to me that might be the case, or you could be correct. I'm not really sure.
Well, let's think it through together.
Yeah.
The first one is completely unknown. We don't know if the corruption would increase, decrease, stay the same as a percentage or as a fixed number. No way to know. So let's throw that out because that's an unknown. And anyone can make an argument rightly that it'll be bigger, smaller, stay the same percentage-wise or numerically. So let's throw that out. Let's deal with the second one. I think that's the more important question. Mm-hmm. How would you know again, do you know this representative by name, whether it's today in the system as it exists or we split it into whatever number, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. How do you know they're not representing you? How do you know they are representing you? You have to take an additional step. You have to know what they are doing. And that's the important. That's what I'm saying is the key.
Right. And would you agree that trust is the deepest level out of those?
Personally, yes.
Right.
But effectively or professionally, politically, no.
Okay.
Because
I'm not sure what you mean by that second part, but
okay, I'll explain it.
I guess I'll just wrap up this point by saying, like, mm-hmm. It seems to me that one way that we could try to, and obviously I'm speaking from a young idealist point of view right now, right? Mm-hmm. It seems to me that one way that we could try to improve our politics is that we could try to implement structural solutions that lead to more trust. Trust being possibly the deepest level of agreement between people. I mean, I think trust is like a very crucial element in loyalty. I think trust is one of the things that our society is really tragically missing. And if we could try to take steps towards regaining that by perhaps having people have a more, I don't know, maybe even just communicative level with their representative, maybe that would be a good step towards solving some of our problems. I guess I'll just wrap up with one last point on this,
sure.
Which is that I think for the vast majority of people, like, they don't relate to their representatives and they don't relate to their government the way that you and I and people who watch the show do. Most people, I think, are not like that. I mean, most people, I think, are too busy. You know, they have working lives and like they have families and they have, you know, all these commitments. And for them, like, keeping up with what their government is doing, it's they have such little time in their lives left to do that it's kind of hard. It's hard for them to do what you were talking about earlier in terms of like, oh, well, you can show up to town halls and you can read through the legislation and you can identify clauses and lines that say, hey, you know, this is like a problem and like we need to address this. Like, I'm not saying that your solution is a bad one. I think it's a good one. But the thing is like, when I think of increasing representation at a state level, it seems to me that people who don't have as much time as we do to keep up with political developments, if they at least have a relationship with their assembly person, with their local representative, and if they communicate with them on a first name basis, they can ask those basic questions of like, hey, I saw that you voted this way, and that to me seems totally wrong. Can you explain to me why you did that and why,
Sure.
you know, perhaps I'm wrong and you're right?
No, I'm not looking at this as wrong and right.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. If you notice, I try generally not to say that. I try to say, here's my conclusion. Here's how I get there. Whether you accept it or not is a different thing. But so I don't want to say wrong, because I think there's a lot of what you're saying I agree with. But I think the degree of what I agree with is different. So you mentioned trust versus loyalty. Let me address that. Con men rely on trust. Even today, people, when you see people, all the ads that are out in every election, it's about trust. Trust me, give me your vote. Trust me, I'm promising I'm going to earn your vote. I promise I'm going to pass college loan elimination, or I'm going to cut taxes, or I'm going to increase the military, or get rid of the military, defund the police, whatever it is, right? This is a trust. You're being asked for trust. Trust can be misplaced. Trust can be abused, because trust doesn't have a substantive basis. It is a feeling. It is a faith. So that's why I'm not looking at trust as a primary. I understand why you would say that. I get it. But that's not the primary focus. Second thing, loyalty. Loyalty, again, can be misplaced. If we are blindly loyal, which we have right now, 20% of all Democrats vote pure Democrats straight down the line. 20% of Republicans vote pure Republicans straight down the line. Anyone running from any election will, unless they're an absolutely crap candidate, you're getting 20% of the vote. In every election, you will get 20%, plus minus, 1 or 2%. Guaranteed. Loyalty can be misplaced, again, because there's no substance behind it. It's just loyalty to the party, to the gender, the race, the ideology, whatever it may be. It doesn't necessarily have substance behind it. So that's why I count those two much lower, and why I want accountability to be so much higher, and why knowing, firsthand knowledge, is so much more important, because it's substantive. There's a trust exercise that happens in, I guess, corporations or something, where someone's standing, you have two people standing. One has a back to the other person, so they tell you, and they say, fall back, and the other person will catch you. It's a trust exercise. You're trusting them to catch you, right? Okay. That's not built on anything substantive. That's your faith. That's politics today. You're just falling, and they promise they will catch you. You have no reason to believe that they will, other than they said so. Then not only can you catch me, but you're going to make sure I'm safe, because you could be 4'1" and catch me, and I'm going to still crash to the ground and hurt myself. You had the right intention. I had the right trust in you, but you failed. And substantively, I should have expected you to fail, because I'm 6'1" and 200 pounds. You're 4'1" 50 pounds, I'm going to wind up getting hurt in that same example. And I'm trying to make it very visual. And I know I'm going to extremes on it, but that's where substance, the accountability, the input of you into that situation is so important, because there's so many variations there and so many ways it can be abused either on purpose or by accident. That's why being involved. And you mentioned one other thing I think is critical in this conversation about time. I do not accept, for myself and in the way I view it, of people saying there's not enough time, because that is almost categorically incorrect. We all have time. It takes about an hour a day on the issue you care about. And when people say, well, I don't have time, I don't have an hour a day. The average person in America spends approximately 40 hours a week watching TV. It's a full-time job. That doesn't count going to the movies, going to a bar, going out to eat. It doesn't count the time that you spend in your car. The average person drives about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes to or from work. We have the time. When we are doing something, people play video games. God knows how many hours people will pay on a video game. Or they binge watch TV shows. They go out and read comic books. They play D&D. I'm getting a little geeky here, but you see the point I'm saying. These are the things that people do every day. We have the time. It's the priority of what do we want to spend time on. Again, that's why I say 1 hour a day on the issue you care about, whatever it is for you. Then you have a basis to give trust and loyalty, because you know. It's not even faith. You know that you can trust them because you've seen their history on how they voted and how well they've matched up to their promises, to their actions. Whether or not it's effective doesn't matter. Are they doing what they said they would do? Or is what they're doing reflecting what I would want them to do? What are the actual details of what it is they're trying to do? Not just the title. What is it? And therefore, if they're doing all of that, then I'm loyal to them. I would want them to vote. I would want to vote for them again, because they've done everything substantively that I need, validated my trust in giving them my vote. Do you see how I come to these conclusions?
Yeah, no, I think you explained yourself really well.